It was on the 28th of October 1664, within the grounds of the Honourable Artillery Company, that the Duke of York and Albany's Maritime Regiment of Foot was formed. 350 years later, we know them better as the world-renowned Royal Marine Commandos.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Gary Green of the Royal Marines, and I'm the creator and chief organiser of the Royal Marines 1664 Challenge, which is to celebrate in 2014 the 350th anniversary of Her Majesty's Royal Marines.
The first ever Royal Marine Commando unit was formed on the 14th of February 1942. These new Marine units would go on to stage some of the most daring and dangerous raids of the Second World War.
Since the Second World War, we have developed a specific function of commandos and the Naval's amphibious forces, which has enabled us to deploy in operations all over the world and environments all over the world, including urban, jungle, desert and the Arctic.
Throughout their illustrious history, the Royal Marines have served in most of the UK's conflicts and wars. In fact, since 1945, the Marines have seen action almost every year, with 1968 the only exception. When called upon, they've always been ready to go anywhere in the world and at a moment's notice, be it Korea, Suez, Malaya and Indonesia in the 50s and 60s, or Northern Ireland, the Falklands, Kosovo and both Gulf Wars in more recent decades.
And of course, right up to date is our operations in Afghanistan, where the Royal Marines have deployed on a number of the Herrick operations through indeed to the final deployment of 40 Commando in 2013. And in all of these conflicts and operations, the Royal Marines have suffered significant injuries.
I was injured in 2007. I was serving out in Afghanistan with 40 Commando, and on Christmas Eve I went out on a routine foot patrol. Towards the end of that foot patrol, the section that I was in went firm to give cover for another section. I was walking to a position that I'd selected for myself to get onto my stomach, and I set off an improvised explosive device. My experience of the recovery pathway was completely positive, which is really great for me because I was injured in the early days when it was new to everybody and lessons were being learned, and I still had an extremely positive experience. And now, speaking to guys that are going through it now or more recently, that's even better now. Everyone gets such a high level of care, literally from the field hospital in Camp Bastion through Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which it is now, and then through to their respective rehab units, which for us is Hasler Company. You know, the whole pathway is just moved with the times and, you know, kept ahead of the curve just to make sure that all the lads get everything they need. In the early days, I used to get quite frustrated. You know, I was very keen just to get up, get walking, you know, and push things as hard as I could. You know, that's just the Royal Marine way. You just want to take it and go as fast as you can and as hard as you can. The Royal Marines training and the Royal Marines ethos is what got me through my recovery. I'd been through this place, through the Commando Training Centre, which was tough. I did that when I was 17. And so I knew I had this state of mind that I'd had inbred into me in here. You know, and it's as much mental as it is physical going through that stuff. But I knew, you know, with the support that I had and, you know, some determination that I could get through it. When a guy gets injured, all the focus is on that guy. And often the family get sidelined a little bit because they're fine, but they also need help. And the Royal Marines were fantastic. You know, our liaison officer looked after my family so well. And because they were looked after so well, it eased my fears, which meant I could concentrate on what I needed to do. And then in turn, eased their fears. And they were able then to support me better because we didn't have any worries. There were no financial worries. You know, we were completely taken care of from day one, which made the whole process a lot easier and a lot less stressful, and just allowed us all to support each other and pull each other through it and just focus on getting better. The RMCTF have provided a lot of financial support for me and my family. It's quite expensive being me. The equipment that I use and stuff is expensive, and you know, it's stuff that I need and it's stuff that they help and provide me with.
The Royal Marines Charitable Trust Fund was established in 2010, at a time when the Royal Marines were suffering significant casualties in Afghanistan. Realising that the needs of those wounded, be they physical or mental, would continue to grow, they set out to raise £6 million by October 2014, enabling them to provide a better quality of life for both serving and former Marines and their families.
I find it extremely reassuring to know that 30, 40, 50 years down the line, if I am in desperate need of anything, for my medical needs, that I can call them up and that a team will rally together and they'll do their best to help me out and get me where I need to be. Obviously, I'm not the only guy in this situation. There are a lot of other Royal Marines who have, a limb missing or multiple limbs missing, who are going to benefit from the help of the RMCTF. And having spoken to a lot of the guys, that I've been through rehab with, who are friends of mine, they all feel equal reassurance that they're going to be looked after, in the future once they leave the Corps. The 1664 challenge is extremely vital in raising money for the RMCTF. The RMCTF spend money, I think, as fast as they get it in. It's a constant cycle of spending it to look after people and then people doing events to get that money coming back in. And big events like the 1664 challenge can raise a substantial amount of money to put into that kit.
The challenge is to ski, sail, cycle, canoe and run 4,136 miles over 5 months. And each element of the challenge will be 1,664 kilometres. And the aim will be to support the Royal Marines Charitable Trust Fund and hopefully raise £500,000 for our wounded servicemen.
The challenge will begin on the 14th of February 2014 in the far north of Norway. From 400 kilometres inside the Arctic Circle, the Royal Marines will ski south to the town of Stavanger. They'll cross some of the most inhospitable terrain Europe has to offer, in temperatures that can reach as low as -40 degrees Celsius.
We're anticipating skiing 30 to 40 kilometres a day, depending on the terrain and the weather. That equates to about a marathon a day on skis. We expect whiteout conditions where you can't see the hand in front of your face, which makes navigation really difficult. The mountainous terrain and the changing weather conditions could cause avalanches. So you have to be aware of that, but Royal Marines have been training in the Arctic conditions for over 30 years.
Stage 2 will see the Marines board a Joint Services Challenger 67 yacht, which will set off across the North Sea, through the English Channel and around the coasts of France and Spain. The men expect to be at sea for 40 consecutive days before arriving at the Spanish port of Cadiz.
Maintaining fitness on board the yacht for 40 days is going to be really hard. One of the guys has come up with an idea of getting a bike and fitting it into the yacht somehow so that each day the guys can get on that bike and keep a level of fitness so they're ready for the next phase of the challenge.
Finally back on solid ground, our Marines trade their yacht for bikes at the start of Stage 3. They will then cycle all the way to northern Spain, over the Pyrenees and up into France. They'll then continue heading north to the port of Cherbourg on the Normandy coast.
We're going to have to save our legs on the first phase of the cycle because after about 400 kilometres in, it's going to be a pretty arduous 2 days over the Pyrenees mountains before we can get back into the flat of France and up to the English Channel.
The penultimate stage may be the shortest, but it's certainly one of the most challenging too. From Cherbourg, the Marines will canoe all the way across the English Channel to Poole in Dorset.
We've got to try and get these kleppers and these sea kayaks across 80 miles of channel, which could actually be a lot more, maybe up to 150 miles in a 48-hour period. And that is going to involve battling the tides, dodging the ships going through the channel, and indeed the weather conditions are going to be the biggest concerns.
The fifth and final phase of the 1664 challenge will start right here at the Royal Marines Museum in Portsmouth. The team will run a total of 1,664 kilometres around England and Scotland, passing through various towns and cities, averaging 28 kilometres a day for 58 consecutive days.
The run is the first opportunity to involve the whole Corps family in the Royal Marines 1664 challenge. And each of the commander units and the reserve units around the UK will be involved in the run. 30 Commando will do the Royal Marines 30-miler across Dartmoor. And that is going to be an epic challenge in itself. In Scotland, 4-5 Commando will take the challenge down to Edinburgh, the Royal Marines Reserve across to Glasgow, and then 4-3 Commando will do 3 of the major peaks in Scotland, finishing at Speen Bridge, a very famous Commando memorial. The Royal Marines Association and all retired Royal Marines have an opportunity to take part in this run. Everybody can get involved, and that's the beauty of the challenge.
Finally, on the 25th of July, the Marines will top 5 incredibly gruelling months with a 48-kilometre run across London. Starting at the Cutty Sark, they'll pass by some of the capital's most famous landmarks before finishing within the grounds of the Honourable Artillery Company, the birthplace of the Royal Marines. They will then join together with Marines from other nations and march through the streets of the city. A truly fitting way to celebrate 350 years of exceptional service by the Royal Marines.
This is going to be a really tough challenge. 5 months, 4,136 miles, and potentially up to 2,000 Marines taking part. Fitness is going to be absolutely key. But I think one of the most important things is the humour. One of the tenets of a Royal Marines Commando is cheerfulness in the face of adversity. And whatever challenge Royal Marine undertakes, it's that humour that will drive us on and enable us to complete this 1664 challenge.
You know, without people's generosity, you know, and people's determination to do these kind of events, I think things would be very different. But because, you know, the lads are so determined and desperate to help, you know, these things change lives. These events and the money that is raised changes lives for the better.
Having served in the Royal Marines now for 34 years, I've seen with my own eyes the selflessness that our Royal Marines display around the world. And having seen some of these guys that have been injured and come back from operations and still show the commando spirit that they had when they joined up and they still have now. And that's the determination for me to do something. So if you want to help us celebrate our 350th anniversary and support the Royal Marines on this epic challenge, and please go to our website or go to our Just Giving page and donate whatever you can to support injured Royal Marines from operations around the world. Thank you.